Ridley Scott didn't know a single thing about ancient Rome, but one 200-year-old painting convinced him to make Gladiator. Gladiator 2 hits theaters this week, so here are some things I bet you never knew about the original. The story behind Gladiator starts in 1972, when 25-year-old David Franzoni traveled across Europe and the Middle East on motorcycle. He recalled, "Everywhere I went in Europe, there was an arena. Even as I went east, going through Turkey, I began to think to myself, this must have been a hell of a franchise." And then when he stopped in Baghdad, he began reading Daniel P. Mannix's 1958 Gladiator novel, Those About to Die, which gave him the idea for the movie. Franzoni became a screenwriter in 1986 with Jumpin' Jack Flash, and would later write Amistad for Steven Spielberg in 1997. Off of that, Spielberg's company DreamWorks gave him a 3-picture deal as a writer and co-producer. He thought back to his Europe trip and pitched Gladiator to Spielberg. Spielberg immediately told him to start writing it. Franzoni then read the ancient Roman text Historia Augusta and decided to base the story on Commodus, as well as Narcissus, a wrestler who, according to ancient historians, strangled Commodus to death. Narcissus would later morph into the wholly fictional character Maximus. DreamWorks producers Walter F. Parks and Douglas Wick wanted Ridley Scott to direct the movie from the beginning, so they showed him a copy of Jean-Léon Gérôme's 1872 painting Police Verso. Scott was so moved by the painting, he instantly agreed to direct the movie. When Parks brought up the fact that Ridley Scott knew nothing about ancient Rome, the director said, "I don't care, I'll do it." Once Scott came on board, he felt that Franzoni's dialogue lacked subtlety, so he hired John Logan to rewrite the script. Logan was a playwright and had previously written Any Given Sunday. Logan rewrote most of the first act and made the decision to kill Maximus's family in order to motivate the character. Scott wanted to portray Roman culture more accurately than previous movies, so he hired a number of historian advisors. Still, the movie deviated significantly from history for the sake of entertainment, continuity, and safety. For example, Commodus didn't murder his father Marcus Aurelius in real life, and there's no indication that Aurelius ever wanted the Roman Empire to go back to being a republic. At least one historical advisor resigned over the historical inaccuracies in the film, and another asked not to be credited. In November 1998, DreamWorks made a deal to co-finance Gladiator with Universal Pictures. Antonio Banderas, Mel Gibson, and Tom Cruise were all considered for Maximus, but Russell Crowe ended up getting it thanks to his breakout performance in LA Confidential. Jude Law auditioned for Commodus, but it went to Joaquin Phoenix after he sent in a great audition tape. Jennifer Lopez actually auditioned for Lucilla, which went to Connie Nielsen. DreamWorks and Universal gave the movie a $103 million budget, and principal photography began in January 1999 across Europe. The opening battle was shot in England, the desert travel and gladiator training scenes were shot in Morocco, Maximus's farm was shot in Italy, and the Rome sets were built in Malta. The crew built a 1/3 chunk of the Colosseum that rose 52 feet high. The other 2/3 and remaining height were then added digitally. The script wasn't even close to being finished when they started shooting. Russell Crowe told Inside the Actors Studio, they, quote, started shooting with about 32 pages and went through them in the first couple weeks. And then the script was going through constant changes throughout production, with Scott getting suggestions from the writers, producers, and actors. Commodus's line, "Am I not merciful?" was improvised by Joaquin Phoenix, and Crowe invented the phrase "strength and honor," which is a modified version of his high school motto. And Crowe also improvised the description of Maximus's farm to Marcus Aurelius. He imagined and described his home in Australia. At one point during production, William Nicholson was hired to rewrite the script as well, in order to make Maximus more sensitive. He also added in the afterlife plot thread. Russell Crowe apparently didn't like Nicholson's changes and his dialogue, and at one point, he refused to say the famous line, "I will have my vengeance in this life or the next." But those weren't the only issues on set. During filming, Joaquin Phoenix tried to quit the movie. As Ridley Scott recently told the New York Times, Joaquin was in his prince's outfit saying, "I can't do it." Scott went on, "I said, what?" And Russell said, "This is terribly unprofessional." But thankfully, Ridley Scott was able to warm up Joaquin Phoenix's cold feet. Russell Crowe suffered multiple injuries during the shoot and says he has scars plus lingering joint, back, and tendon issues from hard hits during the movie's fight sequences. And speaking of the fight sequences, Scott and cinematographer John Matheson shot them with multiple cameras set at different frame rates, which gives us all those stylized, slowed down, and sped up action shots. They used real tigers and dummy tigers in the arena, and some of the animals were filmed on set with actors, while others were done on green screen and then keyed in later. Oliver Reed, who plays Proximo in the film, died of a heart attack mid-production on May 2nd, 1999. He'd not yet finished all of his scenes, and his character was supposed to survive, but instead they killed the character and used a body double in certain shots. The film is then dedicated to Reed. And then Gladiator wrapped production later that month, May 1999. Hans Zimmer composed Gladiator's memorable score, but he was actually accused of stealing some of it from composer Gustav Holst. The Holst Foundation sued Zimmer for copyright infringement, and the case was settled out of court. Gladiator hit theaters on May 5th, 2000, making $34.8 million opening weekend, giving it the #1 spot above U571 and the Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas. It would go on to gross $460 million worldwide total, making it the second biggest movie of the year year, behind Mission Impossible 2, which made $546 million. Gladiator hit DVD and VHS on November 21st, 2000, and made $60 million in its first week. It got an A CinemaScore with moviegoers, and please critics, today 80% of the 259 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive, though some criticized how it handled the real history of Rome. Political scientist Michael Parenti wrote in his 2004 book, The Assassination of Julius Caesar, that the movie is unencumbered by any trace of artistic merit, and he slammed Ridley Scott for portraying Roman citizens as bloodthirsty savages. But Oscar voters didn't seem to care about that, as the movie was nominated for 12 Oscars total and won 5 of them: Best Picture, Crow for Best Actor, Best Visual Effects, Best Sound, and Best Costume Design. It also won the BAFTA for Best Film, and Empire has named it number 39 of the best 100 movies ever, 22 of the best movies of the 21st century, and Maximus is 95 on its list of the 100 greatest movie characters. Ridley Scott, David Franzoni, and John Logan discussed making a sequel as early as June 2001 that might have even involved Russell Crowe's Maximus and had to do with the afterlife in different time periods. Unfortunately, the notion of a sequel seemed dead when DreamWorks sold the Gladiator rights to Paramount. But in 2018, Paramount put Gladiator 2 into development, and now 24 years later, we finally got that sequel.